So, what if I told you that you're being lied to every single day? And not with words, but with something you probably trust a lot more: numbers. Let's pull back the curtain and see exactly how it's done. You see a headline just like this: 95% success rate. It's powerful, right? It's persuasive. It sounds almost perfect. And your first thought is probably, wow, that's incredible. But you know what? This is the exact moment you need to stop and ask yourself the most important question. Is this the whole truth, or is it just the part they want me to see? Because here's the hard truth. You're being manipulated with numbers from the second you wake up. It's in the ads you see, it's in the news you watch, and it's definitely in the political claims you hear. It is absolutely everywhere. Just look at this. This is the perfect example. On the left, it looks like this company's sales are just exploding, right? Through the roof. But now look at the right. That is the exact same data. The only thing that's changed is how they're showing it. The growth is actually tiny. It's a total visual lie. And it's so easy to fall for. And this isn't some rare trick, You're not just seeing one or two of these. No, you are literally swimming in a sea of this stuff every single day. Think about it. The average person in India sees over 300 advertisements a day, and pretty much every single one of them is a potential minefield of misleading data, all designed to make you do something. And you know what's even worse? Studies show that a staggering 89% of us, we can't even spot this manipulation when it's right there in front of us. And this has real consequences, especially for your wallet. 64% of people admit they've made purchasing decisions based on exactly this kind of junk information. We're literally being tricked into spending our hard-earned money. And look, this goes way beyond just ads. I mean, we all saw the headlines. A 98% COVID recovery rate. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? But that number was being calculated while cases were still active. Or how about 20% GDP growth? Sounds like a booming economy, until you realize it's only growing from an artificially low point caused by the pandemic. This isn't about politics, by the way. It's just about understanding the math. But here's the good news. Once you learn their playbook, you can't be fooled. So come on, let's break down the 7 most common deception tricks that they use against you. All right, first up, sample size. This is the classic 9 out of 10 dentists trick. You have to ask yourself, did they survey every single dentist in the country? Of course not. They probably asked a tiny, hand-picked group just to get the result they wanted. You have to remember, a tiny sample can never speak for a massive population. Okay, trick number 2 is what we saw a minute ago: graph axis manipulation. By starting that vertical axis, the y-axis, at say 95 instead of 0, a tiny 5% increase can be made to look like a 500% explosion. Seriously. Always check where the numbers begin. The third trick is a really clever one, switching between percentages and absolute numbers. They just use whichever one sounds more dramatic. Let me show you what I mean. So an ad might yell out, "This new drug reduces your risk of a heart attack by 50%. I mean, that sounds like a medical miracle, right? A total game changer. But now let's look at the absolute numbers. The risk went from 2 people in 1,000 down to 1 person in 1,000. Yeah, it's technically a 50% reduction, but the actual change to your personal risk is pretty much 0. This is why you always have to ask, 50% of what? Next up is a huge one: confusing correlation with causation. Just because 2 things happen at the same time does not mean one causes the other. For example, ice cream sales and drowning deaths both go way up in the summer. So, does eating ice cream cause drowning? No, of course not. There's a third factor, hot weather, that causes both. All right, next we have cherry picking. This is where they only show you the data that makes them look good. A mutual fund will blast out an email screaming about a 40% return last year, while conveniently forgetting to mention the 3 previous years where they actually lost you money. Trick number 6 is the misleading average. That simple word, average, can be used to paint a totally false picture of reality, especially when there's huge inequality in the data. Here is a perfect way to get it. Imagine 4 people are in a room, and they each earn about 20,000 rupees. Then Mukesh Ambani walks in. Suddenly, the average salary in that room shoots up to over 2 lakhs. But that number is completely meaningless for the original 4 people, isn't it? In cases like this, the median, the middle value, gives you a much more honest picture of what's really going on. And our final trick, survivorship bias. This one is deadly. It's when we focus only on the success stories, the survivors, and completely ignore all the failures. We hear about the handful of billionaire college dropouts, but we never hear about the millions who dropped out and didn't make it. By only studying the winners, we get a dangerously skewed view of reality.
So now you know the tricks. The big question is, how do you defend yourself? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You just need to arm yourself with 5 key questions.
This right here, this is your shield. The next time you see a statistic, just run through this little checklist in your head. Ask yourself, what's the sample size here? What are they not showing me? Are they using a percentage, an absolute number, or a misleading average? Is this just a coincidence? And finally, am I only hearing from the winners here? So let's boil it all down to 3 key things. First, remember that numbers themselves don't lie, but the way they're presented absolutely can. Second, your single most powerful weapon is one simple question. How is this measured? And third, the goal here isn't to distrust all data, but to develop a healthy skepticism. Trust, but verify. You can now see the matrix. You're going to start seeing these tricks everywhere. In ads, on the news, and especially in your family's WhatsApp forwards. The great thing is, you are now much, much harder to fool. So I'm curious, which one of these tricks was the biggest eye-opener for you?